maybe this, forced lockdown is like the way to dig deep within the soul.
Hi, Claire. Hi, Sean. Thanks so much for doing this interview. So at this very strange time, can I start by asking how you're feeling up there in the Blue Mountains? How's it going for both of you?
Well, it's so weird for us, because we often come down to town to have our social life, because I'm pretty much a shut in anyway. So it's it's just, it feels more intense now.
You're lucky you're in the mountains, I think. At least you've got a bit of, nature.
We're so lucky. Like at the moment, I've been feeling a bit hemmed in just because of the bushfires, and the walk that I normally do each day is still closed, and I think is going to remain closed all year.
Oh, wow.
What a strange year. It seems like every year seems to get weirder and weirder ever since maybe 2017. 2017 was weird, then 2018 was weird, 2019, 2020, and then...
So to get onto the, topic at hand of, how have things changed since like that, you've come through that really intense summer and now into this. I mean, do you feel like things have changed heaps for you, or does it feel like actually things are just going the same, but you're just trapped in the house?
It's just very weird because a lot of our artwork is, about systems and all these kind of things, and then what happens when systems meet each other and what happens when they break down. And then we're working on all these works about flight and about these kind of things, and then it feels all very kind of like just so weird because in our minds, I think we're always thinking about, we want to make work that is like a some kind of precautionary kind of tale, cautionary tale, and then but we're thinking about something happening in the future, but also actually something's happening right now, and it's just like, it's just so weird. Like,
do you think that it's actually changing your so I don't know if you're actually working on a specific project right now, but I'm really interested to know if what's happening with the COVID crisis and how it relates to your work. Is it actually infecting your ideas? Like, is it changing the way you're thinking at the moment?
So for instance, we shot a video in Bangkok when we were in Bangkok last year, and it's in a place called the Bangkok Boneyard, where it's like all these abandoned airplanes within suburbia, and people can go in there, and it was like, used to be a real Instagram kind of mecca of sorts. And
so if you look up Bangkok top 10 things to do, even TripAdvisor suggests going to this like boneyard. So it's a very strange situation with all these fuselages and wings of like Boeing 737s in this metropolitan area.
And so it's full of like all these young, beautiful hipsters taking photos of each other and stuff. And then we always thought that it was kind of interesting in that it felt like some kind of futuristic things when flight was no longer a thing. For some reason, we always thought that it was like, it would be because of some kind of fossil fuel situation. And then we just shot that like in December, and now we're 4 months down the track, and air travel's down by 97%.
That's
and it's just, it's so weird. Like, we've been editing it, and then right now we're working on the soundtrack, and we're able to do that. We're very fortunate in that we live in a connected age. Oh, are you frozen? Oh, no,
I'm just so interested by what you're saying.
So then, like, we're watching this thing, and it's like, oh my God, when we had it in mind, we were thinking, this is like some kind of vision of the future. But now it's like this, it's just like now, it's just like, it's just really so weird.
That is so strange. Like, that's just, I guess, but it does talk about the nature of your work, which kind of predicts this sort of, or it kind of looks forward and back through the future. So it's this sort of, past future examination. So I
always thought that we were just being really pessimistic, and then it was like,
only.
I was like, no, this is really happening. It's like,
That's the project you're working on at the moment, and you're working in your backyard studio or in the house, or what's the like day to day?
Oh, well, strangely, we've been really busy with some public commission works. So we've been actually working just on the computer a lot. But so many things have been deadlines for, things that we're working on have been pushed back. So we're just kind of rejigging things in a way.
Yeah.
But I guess this week we're meant to be going to Japan for a 3-month residency.
Oh, that's so sad.
That's not going to happen.
So one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, do you think that art has a role to play in this time of crisis?
I guess it's a tricky question in that on one level, everybody is really taking refuge within art and art forms such as music or books or movies that can be streamed, or even like their own collection within their house or whatever. But
jigsaw puzzles, everything, like just being in this kind of lockdown situation, anyone, or, you just to occupy the mind or to keep spirits up, it's art is the savior.
But in a way, it's almost like just going through like a Northern European winter, really. I mean, it's always been the issue about Australia is that the weather's too good to actually sit around and think. There's always like the possibility of going to the beach or, kicking a football around. So maybe this, forced lockdown is like the way to, dig deep within the soul or something like that. But see what darkness there is.
In terms of your own work, I mean, you're already talking about the idea that, the work that you've been making suddenly is taking on sort of new meanings.
Yeah. It feels a bit uncanny in a way just to be working on because we're working on this other piece. It's like an aeroplane wing, and we've got this text written on it that says Mayday. But the way that we've made the text come to life, it's through like a sticker bomb, kind of very peppy. And I feel like it's really pertinent. But for this moment in time, that it wasn't really made for this time in a sense. I don't know.
You guys are psychic. You're definitely psychic. I mean, the work. It's just saying that now. So we can just.
You know who is psychic? My sister is psychic.
Yeah.
Because Christmas, she gave us
She thought it was so funny. It'd be such a great gag. Instead of buying us a Christmas present, she bought us like a huge box of Who Gives a Crap toilet paper.
What?
And we're still not even halfway through it. And it is just nuts that I just think, gosh, that was really like a premonition you had that. When I say that, oh crap.
And he's like,
I can't get a better present than that. That's
like kings of the castle.
Do you have any tips for people in terms of staying sane?
For us, it's walking. We're always walking. And we're always dragging the kids. The kids are like, no, not another walk. But we like to go for an hour-long walk somewhere.
And you guys being able to get out into some pretty significant nature, even though it is burnt to a crisp. There must be some debris growth though, right, at the moment? Is there?
It's crazy.
Oh, it's incredible. Crazy. It's really coming back with such a, it's like this carpet, or it's like the bushes in puberty at the moment, and everything is furry.
Oh, I love that.
But it's so strange, this whole situation. I'll be just at the supermarket and then just be hit with this kind of sadness or something like that. Or it's very odd because it's not like someone was saying, I thought the apocalypse would be like Mad Max, but it's actually more like the Big Lebowski kind of thing. There's just have this kind of moment where you're just in a supermarket just looking at milk kind of thing.
Your bathrobe, that's one of the strange things about living at the moment, I think, is just those feelings of just, it's like a weird connection with everyone, but then the sadness as well. But I sort of feel like the world feels quite more connected than it does normally, even though we can't travel and see each other or whatever, but there's this strange sense of everyone being in the same situation.
We're very lucky in this, we are going through this crazy pandemic, but it's the mortality rate's not that high in terms of, you know, historical other pandemics that have been around, you know, compared to the bubonic plague or other things like that. So, you know, this hopefully, like, not that many people will die, but then hopefully also it's a real wake-up call in relation to what our relationship to the environment is, you know, like, because this whole thing has come because through, you know, it's basically skipped species, and that's because of, you know, where we're living and how we live and how we engage with the wilderness and stuff. And so I think hopefully
disconnection.
Yeah, well, I just hope that, you know, in terms of like things like climate change and, you know, climate justice, it's a real wake-up call to say, you know, we can't, although, you know, humans can do a lot, we are still at the mercy of, you know, so many natural forces, and we have to kind of be respectful of that.
We are willing to go to such extremes to protect ourselves in regards to our own health and well-being. I just hope that we could also reflect on that to be able to do the same thing for the planet.
It will be interesting how people really digest the whole situation, because I guess it really is like not the role of the artist, but, you know, artists should be able to live through something and be able to give us some kind of vision or some kind of clarity or some kind of insight to the collective experience. So it'll be interesting to see how it affects people and whether they can come up with something meaningful.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Claire and Sean. It's been so great chatting with you. I miss you both, and hopefully I'll get to see you soon up in the mountains when all this is over. Okay, take care. Bye.